Felix cheated, a one-night stand. The girl got pregnant and confronted me, demanding Felix take responsibility. Felix lit a cigarette and handed the decision to me. Just once, if you can forgive me, we can make this work. If not, then let's get a divorce. My face turned pale, and I asked in a trembling voice, it was your fault, wasn't it? If we get divorced, you'll admit it was your fault, right? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. My marriage to Felix was something my sister didn't want. Rachel is lively and outgoing, yet willful and capricious. She refused to be trapped for a lifetime by so-called family alliances, so she took a card with 20 million and ran away. My mother felt sorry for her younger daughter and couldn't bear to part with Felix, such a good son-in-law, so she pushed me out instead, as if just being a daughter of the Ernest family meant Felix would marry her. Felix, who is he? A falling plaque at the foot of the imperial city could strike down a whole row of ancestors. He was the most prominent among them. Rachel, her running away from the marriage had already humiliated him, and now he wants me to marry her. Are you daydreaming? But I still went to see him once, recommended myself, and he actually agreed. This year marks the 4th year of our marriage. In front of others, we are the model couple, but in private, we treat each other with respect. Maintaining the most basic etiquette even in bed. My mom keeps urging me, saying I should have a child, and complaining that I'm useless, saying that if this continues, I won't be able to keep Felix tied down, and what if he runs away? I want to say, Felix isn't a dog, I'd like to tie him down. But would he let me? But I couldn't say it, I could only nod meekly and repeatedly. My mother couldn't stand seeing me like this. She rolled her eyes, twisted her waist, and strode away. But what I never expected was that I actually got pregnant. My period is 1, 2, 3 days late, maybe even 4 weeks. Last night I bought a pregnancy test, and it showed 2 lines. Today I went to the hospital and had a blood test. The doctor is holding the report, at 9 weeks pregnant. Do you want to keep this baby or not? I think so. I hesitated a bit. Felix doesn't know yet. This child is also outside of our plan. I need to go ask him. So, holding the report, I went straight to his company. When I arrived, Felix was in a meeting. The assistant led me to the office, served coffee and pastries, and asked me to wait for a while. I picked up the cup and was about to drink. Can you drink coffee while pregnant? I don't know. Let me check. It's drinkable. That's no problem. I took a small sip and sighed contentedly. Just as I was halfway through that sigh, a sudden clamor of argument erupted from outside, accompanied by a woman's scream. I pushed the door open and locked eyes with the woman who was being held back, her eyes red and swollen. She yelled, "Let Felix come out. He got someone pregnant, doesn't he have to take responsibility?" Such a loud voice. What a scene. So many people. So embarrassing. I wish I could find a hole to crawl into. I just want to say, this has nothing to do with me. Luckily Felix showed up in time. He walked through the crowd with a cold expression and saw me peeking through the door crack. That large, bony hand covered my eyes. I instinctively shrank back. He moved his hand and closed the door. I blinked my eyes. No, my husband cheated on me and got someone else pregnant. Now the woman has come to our door, and I'm not supposed to be involved at all, Felix said. Not exactly. He dismissed the others, whispered a few words to that woman, pushed the door open, and brought her before me. Watching him act so calm and composed, I really felt like applauding. To cheat with such righteous confidence. He's probably the first and last of his kind. The woman is cool. She wore simple sportswear, with a high ponytail and a baseball cap, sitting there with legs crossed. Her whole demeanor screamed, "Don't mess with me." Yet she was undeniably beautiful, with delicate features and striking, cool eyes. Just her looks alone made it impossible to dislike her. It's a shame she has such a sharp tongue. Is this your wife? Let's get a divorce. I'm pregnant. You need to take responsibility, I pouted. Then I'm pregnant too. Who's going to take responsibility for me? Logically speaking, as the legal wife, I should have more advantage than her, the mistress. But when marriage becomes a battlefield, the less moral one often acts more self-righteous. Hey, I sighed, grabbed a small cookie, and ate it. It was creamy and not too sweet. Not bad. Would you like some? The woman looked at me with disdain and pointed. Is she crazy? Felix finally frowned, which was a rare occurrence, grabbing my hand. He pulled me into the lounge. He smoked a cigarette in silence. Just once, I accidentally drank an aphrodisiac wine and ended up having an unexpected encounter with her. Pamela. He looked up at me, his gaze unusually serious. I was wrong. You make the decision. If you can forgive me, we'll live well together. If not, then divorce. The word divorce suddenly appeared, making my heart skip a beat, then rapidly accelerate. I couldn't help but pinch the fleshy part of my hand uncontrollably. Is it your fault? Right, if we get divorced, you'll admit it's your fault, won't you? Felix looked at me seriously. He is good looking, more so than anyone else I have ever seen. I really enjoy looking at him, especially in bed, from below, gazing into his dazed eyes and listening to his sensual gasps. All of this always makes me lose myself, experiencing the ultimate pleasure. Divorce, it's quite a pity. But divorce isn't entirely out of the question. So, your choice is divorce. I nodded and pointed outside. It's come to this. There's no choice but to separate. Just promise me you'll admit it was your fault to my mom, right? I confirmed once more. Felix's expression, however, turned cold. Such unfamiliar and distant eyes are quite unsettling. But I am best at dealing with inner discomfort. Take a deep breath and let it out, that's all it takes. Felix stood up, brushed off non-existent dust from his clothes, and said calmly, "Don't worry, I'll handle it." Sigh, "Then I can rest easy. If we're getting a divorce, I don't want anything else, just pharmaceuticals. Good enough. But if it's convenient for you, a villa would be nice too. Okay, could I also have 3 billion? Felix turned around and stared at me. You want everything, yet you still want a divorce. If we don't divorce, everything will be yours. I avoided his gaze, lowered my head, and stepped on my own left foot with my right. That's quite a statement. Then don't cheat. No cheating, no divorce, and your wife and kids are yours. No, he cheated, got divorced, and still has a wife and children. Damn it, as expected, merchants chase profit, calculating everything clearly. The woman was Felix sent away, what they said, what promises he made to her. I have no idea. When I came out of the lounge, the woman had already left. Not a single piece of the delicious dessert remained. I looked and looked. Before leaving, I couldn't help but grab the assistant. Could you pack up some of those cookies from earlier for me? Assistant Bob hesitated, at a loss for words. Behind them, Felix let out a cold laugh. Pack them for her. This matter has gotten way out of hand. In the evening, my mom called. The first time, I didn't answer. The second time, I still didn't answer. Third, I stared at the phone for a long while, then threw it into the sink. Finally, I breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, I also came to understand one thing. I will give birth to the child in my womb. This child, I will provide half of his chromosomes. He will be nourished by my flesh and blood, emerge from my body, and grow into a new life. He and I are connected by blood. That is my beloved family and friend. What reason do I have not to give birth to him? Yes, I will give birth to him. This decision got me excited. I opened that bottle of 400,000 yuan red wine from the wine cabinet. Can you drink alcohol while pregnant? No, just the right amount. So, cheers. At 8 o'clock, my mom stormed over. The banging on the door was loud enough to get reported, but there's no other way. I live in a detached villa. I put on my headphones and turned the volume up to the maximum. Yet I could still faintly hear her yelling. Couldn't make out the words clearly, but I can probably guess. It's nothing more than the Pamela uselessness theory and the Pamela meaning of existence theory. No innovation, no uniqueness. Yet it's still something I don't want to hear. I don't know how long it's been, but the voices seem to have stopped. After who knows how long, it seems like my door opened. Felix takes off my earphones, holding my broken phone in one hand and a new one in the other. Expressionless, speaking coldly. Insert the SM card yourself. Lab couldn't reach you. They called me instead. Call them back immediately. I looked up at him. Felix, you're not mistaken. What? Even though it was your affair that caused our divorce, my mom still came to blame me. Felix looks at me. Take a deep breath. Understood. I'll handle it. Felix handled it very poorly. I'm going to give him a bad review. My mom rushed to the company and was stopped by security. I had just come out of the lab, having pulled an all-nighter, and the sample reactions weren't looking good. Several researchers were feeling discouraged and frustrated. Felix said that at times like this, we should encourage them, give them hope, and motivate them. But they are human too. It's normal to feel discouraged and frustrated. Choosing this profession means they have the courage to start over again even after failing countless times. This is what fascinates me the most. But the secretary said that my mother has arrived and specifically asked to see me. I won't rest until I see her. But the truth is, if I don't want to, she really won't be able to see me. I took the private elevator down, got into the car, and sneaked away like a dog. My mom suddenly appeared, standing right in front of my car, glaring at me fiercely. I had no choice but to buy her a cup of coffee. At the same time, I was counting on my fingers in my mind. It had been 372 days since we last met. Mother and daughter, we could have set a new record, but now it's all ruined. What a shame. Are you going to divorce Felix? Are you out of your mind? My mom started at 0 frames, so fast it caught me completely off guard. Then she continued without pause. Do you have no brain? Do you think you're Pamela more noble than everyone else in this world? What man doesn't cheat? What man is completely clean? Only you are so special. Making a fuss about divorcing over some trivial matter as small as a sesame seed or a mung bean. If you're not embarrassed, I am. Who's to blame for a man's infidelity? It's your own fault for not being able to keep him in check or control him. I've said it all along. What's the use of just being clever? You don't understand human relationships at all, can't read the situation, lack perception, and are so stubborn. Outsiders always say I favor Rachel. If only you were half as sensible and considerate as Rachel, you'd still be biased. I interrupted her and finished her sentence for her. My mother choked, staring at me and screaming in disbelief. Pamela, do you have to contradict me every time? No, I'm just tired, I want to sleep, I'm pregnant. The fertilized egg inside me still needs to develop. I stood up, wanting to leave, but my mother, as if someone had touched a raw nerve, grabbed me, her eyes fierce, and raised her hand just like countless times in my childhood. In that moment, I was terrified. I could dodge her, I could stop her, I could even fight back, but my nerves seemed to be blocked, unable to make any response. I could only stand rigidly, dumbfounded, like a puppet. Even my breathing came to a halt. Mom. A clear and melodious call. My mom suddenly stopped and turned around in pleasant surprise. At the door stood a charming girl, even though she was panting. The smile on her lips was still perfect. Rachel, when did you come back to the country? Why didn't you tell Mom? Rachel trotted over and squeezed in between me and her mom. She held her mother's arm, swaying and acting coquettishly. I wanted to give you a surprise. Mom, I missed you so much. Her mother was so pleased that wrinkles formed at the corners of her eyes. I subtly and imperceptibly took a step back, giving them ample space to play out their mother-daughter affection. Until I bumped into a wall, a warm wall. Rachel, how did you get here? Who picked you up? Felix. Both mother and daughter looked at Felix behind me. He supported my back and whispered, "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath. "When did you reconnect with your ex-fiancé?" Felix gazed with a darkened expression. "Currently, she is still my sister-in-law." "Oh, so how did you get involved with your sister-in-law?" He didn't like hearing that, because I saw his jaw muscle clench. Of course. There are still people who don't like to watch. Rachel pouted, looking unhappy, and squeezed in between me and her brother-in-law. "Felix, what are you talking about? I called you, but you ignored me." She held onto her brother-in-law's arm as naturally as she would her mother's. Her mother looked suspiciously, her gaze shifting between the two of them. "Rachel, you all." Rachel blushed before she spoke, stamping her foot in a coquettish manner. "Mom, don't talk nonsense. Felix and I, we are. Oh, I'm not talking to you all anymore." So annoying, hesitating to speak, half refusing and half welcoming. This kind of behavior is just so Rachel. Her mother suddenly understood, the corners of her mouth lifting, the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes deepening. All right. Today is a happy day. Felix, you accompany Rachel, and we'll all go home for dinner together." Everyone present was very busy. Only Felix could spare a moment to glance at me, but in the end, he obediently let Rachel drag him away, and I, as the sister, from the moment I appeared until I left, didn't even glance at me. Rachel is back. Everything suddenly started going smoothly. In the evening, my mom took a moment to send me a message. "If you're determined to get a divorce, just get it over with quickly. But since you're the one who wants the divorce, then you leave with nothing. Don't be greedy and want everything. Our family can't afford to lose face like this." At 10 o'clock, Felix came to the company. He brought some late-night snacks, and we all had a brief meeting. I called out to him as he was leaving. "Is the divorce agreement being drafted? As for CG Pharmaceuticals, that's my safety net, right? Don't you have anything else to ask?" "I actually do. Are you going to be downgraded to my brother-in-law? What about the mother of your one-night stand child?" Felix laughed, a cold chuckle escaping him. "What, even after the divorce, you still care about who takes your place?" I pursed my lips. He was actually angry. "Just a reminder, if Rachel ever considers being with you, protect that child's mother." Rachel's mother goes insane to the point that even Rachel herself is afraid. Seeing he didn't speak, I turned to leave but was called back by him. "Pamela, He looked like he had something to say but hesitated. After holding it in for a long time, I finally blurted out, "She has a name, it's Polly." Oh, I didn't expect that right after learning Polly's name, I would run into her. After deciding to keep the baby, I went to the hospital to register and underwent more detailed checkups. Just as I left the hospital, I received a call from my senior colleague. "Did you know your mom kidnapped someone to force an abortion? She's trying to ruin my career." To what extent can a person become utterly depraved? To this extent, disregarding the will of others, disregarding their human rights. The Ernest family invested in that private hospital, and she felt she held the power of life and death. I didn't hesitate and called the police. At the same time, I called Felix. No answer. After thinking for 2 seconds, I turned around and drove over. When I arrived, The scene was extremely chaotic, two groups of people, one blocking Rachel's mother, the other blocking Polly, shameless thing, being the other woman, ruining my daughter's family, and even carrying a bastard child. Your mother didn't teach you how to be a decent person, so today I'll teach you. What do you think you are, yelling at me like that? Let me tell you, I'm actually scared. I was bitten by a dog when I was little. Who are you calling a dog? Scolding you, old hag. If you have the guts, come face me. I can even hit you. Ha, so you think you're justified in seducing men? If you're so capable, why not strip naked and show yourself to everyone on the street? What, have you done it before? So experienced. Rachel, her mother, was furious. Polly was no less aggressive. If someone hadn't held her back, she would have flown out, until the police arrived. The head of the Ernest family, Rachel's ever-busy father, also showed up. The police are mediating. Rachel's mom and Polly are still arguing. Rachel's dad acted decisively and slapped Rachel's mom across the face. Shut up, aren't you ashamed enough? In an instant, Rachel's mother fell silent, as quiet as a little chick. He looked at Polly and said, Miss Jiang, I apologize for this incident. You can make any requests. I just hope you can let the matter rest. I believe none of us want this to escalate. Polly's hair was disheveled, looking somewhat discomposed. She let out a cold laugh. Peace and quiet is impossible. I'm calling the police. I'm suing her. I'm going to, smack. Another slap landed on Rachel's mother's other cheek. How about that? Is that enough? If it's not sufficient, everyone froze in shock, especially Polly, whose lips were tightly pressed together, her face looking extremely grim, and I, standing outside the crowd, let my raised foot tremble and fall back, my hand at my side suddenly clenching tight. A slap. Enough. Another slap. Is this enough? My mother grabbed me by the hair and pushed me in front of the child and her parents. If you're still not satisfied, how about this? Another slap followed. It was that little girl. She tore up my test paper. So I pushed her, and she fell down, crying and saying I hit her. My mom came over and slapped me right away. She asked others if that was enough. Did it hurt? I don't remember. I only felt a wave of dizziness, a warm dampness. I lost control of my bladder in front of everyone. When I was little, I never understood why mom and dad didn't like me. I got first place. I learn everything quickly. The teachers praise me, and all the adults I know compliment me. Only my parents. Dad seems to never see me. Mom's gaze is cold. So what if you got first place? Are you here to show off to me? Get lost. Get lost. Just seeing you annoys me. My good deeds never get any praise, but my flaws are endlessly magnified. She was like a quality inspector with a magnifying glass. Any oversight on my part would become a carnival of criticism aimed at me. I lay on the carpet, my thoughts wandering aimlessly. Rachel had come in at some point without me noticing. She appeared above me, looking down at me. Did you see the message I sent you? I even called you, and you ignored me. Pamela, you're so mean. I closed my eyes and turned over, but she just lay down beside me on her own. After Dad came home, he sternly warned Mom, saying that if she lost Felix as a son-in-law, he would bring Andrew back home. Andrew, Rachel's father's illegitimate son, 2 years older than me. Mom went crazy, smashed everything in the house, and insisted that I must marry Felix. She sounded impatient. When exactly are you two getting divorced? I don't want to deal with her. I got up to go upstairs, but she grabbed me. Play chess with me. At this point, I really couldn't hold back. You, playing what? Gamoku, a lousy player. Rachel, however, beamed with a smile. Giggling softly, we played 2 games in total, each lasting over 40 minutes, with her pondering each move for 1 to 2 minutes. Finally, before even reaching the halfway point of the second game, I successfully fell asleep. Rachel soon noticed, waving a hand in front of my eyes. She tiptoed to fetch a blanket and carefully draped it over me. Then, crouching low and carrying her shoes, she slowly left, closed the door, and left the room in tranquility. Rachel asked a good question. When will Felix and I finally get divorced? He had been away on a business trip for a few days. He just returned today and went straight to the office after getting off the plane, upon hearing the news. I rushed over as soon as possible, but it was still a step too late. Bob's assistant awkwardly stopped me. MS, Pamela, there's someone in the president's office. Who? MS, Polly. Oh, probably came to settle scores with Felix after suffering some grievance. What else could I do? Just wait. I waited for 13 minutes, didn't wait for Felix, waited for Rachel and her mom. At that moment, Bob's assistant's back stiffened. I couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for him. 3 groups of people. 3 groups of women, all here to urge their CEO to get a divorce. Rachel, her mother, frowned the moment she saw me. What are you here for? Her face was still slightly swollen, and no amount of makeup could hide it. I looked away. Divorce. She snorted lightly and pulled Rachel to sit down in front of me. Rachel played with her phone. Oblivious to the world, she whispered, You're the one who wanted the divorce. Besides, Felix was originally Rachel's fiancé from the start. You were just holding the spot for Rachel, and it's all your fault. If you could have managed Felix properly, how could there have been an affair and an illegitimate child? Pamela, did you do it on purpose? Take a deep breath and slowly exhale. Forget it, I'd rather face the mistress. Just like that, I stood up, met the astonished gaze of Assistant Bob, pushed open the office door, and walked in. Behind me, he stopped Rachel's mother, Ms. Ernest. You really can't come in. Outside the door was a battlefield, and inside was no less chaotic. Polly grabbed Felix by the collar, almost pressing her entire body against him. Felix leaned against the wall, his eyes smoldering with anger, yet the corners of his eyes were tinged with red. I don't know if it was out of anger or agitation. I abruptly stopped in my tracks. One of them turned around, the other looked up, both staring at me simultaneously. Their gazes were extremely fierce, as expected. There's no place for me in this world. Polly coldly released Felix, picked up the hat from the ground, and put it on her head. A bunch of lunatics. She gritted her teeth. I touched my nose, suddenly remembering there was someone even crazier outside. Just as I was about to warn her, she had already pulled the door open. Then came a furious roar. Get lost. Don't mess with me. Hiss. I gave Felix a thumbs up. Not bad, very commanding presence. Felix also kept a cold expression, loosening his tie. He asked, "What are you here for?" I look at Felix, clearly angry. I put away my cheerful expression and asked, "Is the divorce agreement drafted?" Felix slowed his movements. "Pamela, if I hadn't cheated, would you still divorce me?" The question was baffling, yet I fell silent. Felix let out a short laugh. "I just knew it." He nodded. "Don't worry, the divorce agreement will be sent to your email before tomorrow. Anyway, I never really liked you that much." He said the last sentence very softly, and I didn't quite catch it clearly, but seeing that he didn't want to say more, I didn't press further. Felix kept his word. At 5 p.m. that afternoon, I received the divorce agreement. He gave more than I expected in the property division. After reading through each item, I signed my name at the very end. It was also on this day that I received a call from Andrew. He said he was about to wrap things up and asked if I was ready. At the age of 8, Andrew's mother passed away. Like a little beast, he rushed out and bit Jason's arm. From then on, he appeared in our sight. It was also his appearance that made Jason and Ella dislike me even more, because I didn't cry. Dad was hurt, and I was indifferent. But Rachel was different. That year, she was 5 years old, holding Jason's arm, sobbing, blowing on Dad's wound, and asking if it hurt. He cheated and even had an illegitimate child. Why should I cry? He shook his head, an ungrateful wretch. Impossible to tame. Ella grabbed me by the ear and threw me into the rain. Raised you for nothing. Can't even cry, heartless creature. Andrew was also in the rain. We were caught in the same rain, but I hate him just as much as he hates me. Jason didn't take him back, but would pay him alimony every month, and he accepted it. His only advantage at Jason's place was his gender, but he didn't join Jason's company. He couldn't be tamed either, so Jason didn't make him public. Later, I married Felix and joined CG Pharmaceuticals. In the first year, I invested the first sum of money for Andrew. He asked me what I wanted. I said, release the power. That couple created 3 people, yet did not treat any of them as human. They were merely objects, things. They could be molded and disposed of at will. What makes them so brazen and unafraid? Is it their power, wealth, and status? I want to conduct an experiment. If we strip them of everything they currently possess, would that also strip them of their authority over their 3 children? Go ahead, I don't need to prepare anything. I'm just an observer. Monday, September 8th. The sky was clear, and a gentle breeze was blowing. I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau with Felix as planned. Since there were no objections, the whole process went very quickly. In less than half an hour, we got our divorce certificates. As we walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, I suddenly spoke up, I'm pregnant. Felix was momentarily bewildered. His head seemed to jam, turning stiffly. What did you say? I'm pregnant. Felix, now even his breathing halted. He stared at me intently, his eyes swirling with emotions I couldn't decipher. Why didn't you tell me? Why tell me now? I didn't tell you because I didn't want to cause unnecessary complications. I'm telling you now because you would have found out eventually. In this matter, I was completely selfish and didn't consider anyone else. Since childhood, Ella has told me to do good things. Good to whom? Good to her, good to Jason, good to Rachel, and good to anyone else. As for myself, there's no need to consider. Countless times, I wanted to break free from this constraint, yet I remained trapped within it. I discovered I was pregnant, and found out Polly was also pregnant. I should get an abortion. Felix will eventually get married. My child shares an unbreakable blood bond with him, which will lead to endless trouble. But I just want to give birth to him, my child alone. Felix, you can come to see him, but you cannot take him away from me. Rachel ran away again. Once she confirmed I was divorced, she booked her flight ticket. Did you bring enough money? More than enough. Bring a little extra. There won't be any more after this. Rachel understood the meaning behind my words and fell silent. Her feelings toward that couple were the most complicated. She had received the most love from them. At first, you might think it was love, it was doting. Later you realized it was overindulgence. Then, after licking off the outer sugar coating, you found it was poison inside. I don't know, and I don't understand. I'm not as smart as you all. I can't learn anything well, I can't learn the piano well, I can't learn painting well, I can't learn dance well, and I can't even learn chess well. Just pretend I know nothing. Actually, I really do know nothing. She hugged me and said, "Sis, goodbye." I paused slightly, my hanging hand twitching. Actually, I knew this was an overly kind, soft-hearted child. When she learned piano as a child, I had to accompany her. Before she even got the basics, I had already mastered all the pieces. She was so frustrated that she burst into tears. Ella then took a rattan stick and hit my palm. "I asked you to accompany your sister, not to show off in front of her, always trying to outdo others. Why are you so jealous?" My hand was swollen from the beating, so much that I couldn't even hold chopsticks. Ella saw this, picked up the chopsticks, and flung them at my face. "If you're not going to eat, then get out. You've even learned to give me attitude." My face stung with a burning pain, and my mouth was filled with a metallic taste. I opened my mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. That night, Rachel sneaked into my room, handed me a piece of candy, and said, "Sister, eat this." I looked at her coldly. I threw the candy away and pushed her aside. She started crying again, but she covered her mouth. Her face flushed red, not daring to let herself cry out. I hated her crying, hated her clumsy hands and feet, hated how she couldn't learn anything, because if she cried, I would be punished. If she fell, I would be punished. If she can't learn it, I'll be punished too. When did I start to realize that she might not be so annoying after all? Probably when she asked to learn chess, to learn Go. At the Ernest families, you should gladly accept what they give you, but you must not ask for it. Rachel said, "Mom, I want to learn Go." Ella frowned at her, her gaze particularly cold. "Rachel, Mom has to scold you for this. Why do you keep changing your mind on a whim? Learning to play chess. Have you made any progress in the English classes we signed you up for? Child, why do you always waste Mom and Dad's money?" At that moment, Rachel shrank back, but she bit her lip and turned her plea to Jason instead. "Dad, can I learn Go?" Ella completely stiffened, her face turning cold. "Rachel, all right, if the child wants to learn, let them learn, it's no big deal." Jason made the final decision with a single sentence. But the actual implementation still depends on Ella. Ella gave Rachel the cold shoulder for a week. Rachel was like a little puppy, snuggling up to Ella, softly calling her Mommy, saying, "Mommy, drink some water," and "Mommy, let me massage your back." In the end, Ella sighed, "Oh, you child. You're just so sweet and thoughtful. How could I really stay angry with you? Want to learn Go? Is it? No problem. If Rachel wants to learn, we'll learn." I never asked Rachel why she was so determined to learn it, but I really liked it. I played chess with her and studied chess manuals together. That was, from childhood to adulthood, the way to quickly calm me down whenever I felt nervous, overwhelmed, or out of breath. Andrew did it ruthlessly. Not only did he use ruthless tactics to bring down the Ernest family's company, but he also sent Jason to prison. That day Jason was so enraged that several people could barely hold him back. He roared, "I should have killed you. I should have killed you the moment you were born." Andrew took a gulp of alcohol. "I hate him so much. I still hate him now, not a single bit less. Your experiment is useless. How could one not hate?" His mother supported Jason through college, working as a waitress, a dishwasher, doing all kinds of dirty and tiring jobs. But after Jason met Ella, he quickly shifted his affections elsewhere. He was afraid of Andrew's mother causing trouble. And also afraid that Andrew's mother would damage his reputation, he disguised himself as a victim. Andrew's mother seduced his friend. If someone is determined to slander a woman's innocence, she can hardly defend herself no matter what she says. She almost jumped into the river, but she was pregnant. She struggled to survive and raised her child until he was 8 years old, but her body had long been plagued by chronic illnesses, and the deep-seated ailments were hard to reverse. She could only entrust Andrew to Jason. As for Andrew, even without his mother saying a word, he had long understood everything from the gossip of the neighbors and the scornful remarks of others. How could he not hate? As for me, is it useful to me? It doesn't seem to be of much use either, because I'm still afraid of Ella. When she stood before me, her face twisted in fury as she demanded to know what I had done. I still felt my heart tremble, my chest tighten, and my breath catch. It seemed like a fear that had been branded into my very bones, but I still stepped forward, clenched my fists, and said to her calmly, "I will support you, on the condition that you don't provoke me, otherwise, you'll end up with nothing." Her lips trembled, and her pupils shook with shock. For the first time, fear appeared in her eyes. All at once, my emotions settled, so I said to Andrew, it wasn't entirely useless, at the very least, I was happy. Andrew snorted coldly and pushed the drink in front of me. To our cooperation. She doesn't drink. Felix appeared out of nowhere. It's been many days since I last saw him after we got the divorce certificate. He still holds shares in CG Pharmaceuticals, but he hasn't been there even once. It's as if he's vanished into thin air. At this moment, with a grim expression, he leaned his arm between me and Andrew, picked up the glass, and downed it in one gulp. Once again, she doesn't drink. Andrew snorted, pressing his tongue against his cheek, leaning back with a look of utter nonchalance. "Stay away from her, or that custom-tailored suit of yours might just be ruined." This remark provoked Felix to unleash his aura, clenching his fists directly. I had a bit of a headache and raised my hand to hold him back. "Don't mess around. He is Andrew." Felix paused, staring at Andrew, his face dark and frighteningly grim. Andrew raised an eyebrow, stood up, and downed the last sip of his drink. "It seems you don't need me. All right, I'm off." He left with a carefree air, leaving only me and Felix staring at each other in bewilderment. "Did you bring a driver?" "No. Call a designated driver. Have Polly come pick you up." "What do you want her for?" I suddenly realized. "Right, she's pregnant. That's not suitable." "Then, none of your business." The last 4 words, Felix, were spoken through gritted teeth, lifting my feet to walk out. Not even turning my head. "Are you angry again?" Pregnancy is a truly magical thing. I have never felt the word life force so tangibly before. It is no longer a concept from a book, but a real, growing little being inside my body. He resides within me, following an ancient genetic blueprint and building himself independently. His presence reminds me time and again, beyond my own heartbeat, another entirely new rhythm is being nurtured in sync. This wondrous connection makes me feel both more vulnerable and more powerful than ever before. I work diligently and take good care of myself. He must be a very well-behaved child. He didn't cause me morning sickness or loss of appetite. In fact, I even gained 2 pounds. At 16 weeks pregnant, I scheduled an appointment for a prenatal checkup at the hospital. When I went out, I found that Felix's car was already parked in the yard. We haven't been in touch much lately, mostly because of work. He seemed a bit down, and I had no idea what he had been through. Seeing me come out, he rubbed his temples and said in a hoarse voice, "I'll take you there. Don't rush to refuse. After all, I am the child's father, and I won't fight you for custody. It's just that I'm not at ease with you being alone." I didn't move, looking calmly at Felix. "He is only my child. You are just the major shareholder of my company. I don't need your care. You've overstepped." Felix gasped for breath. "Do you have to be so ruthless?" "Felix, you should understand, this is only natural." "Why? Because we already belong to 2 different families." "No," Felix growled, "I didn't cheat. Polly isn't pregnant. We can still be a family. We have our child." "We." Felix's words cut off abruptly. He let out a bitter laugh. "You don't care, do you? It's so obvious. Full of loopholes everywhere. You're so smart. You must have known it all along, except, you just don't care at all, right?" Felix's words left me a bit confused. "What do I know? Polly is not pregnant." "I know, but I quickly sorted out my thoughts. Although I don't know Felix's original intention for deceiving me, but I understand, we can be tacit partners, but definitely not suitable companions. I once had a very big argument with Felix. That day, he was drunk and called me for an hour. My phone was locked in the cabinet, so I didn't hear it. It was already 4 in the morning by the time I got home. He was sitting in the living room with the lights off. I asked him, "Why aren't you asleep yet?" With just that one sentence, he smashed everything in the living room and suspended me from my job. He needs a wife who manages the household, raises the children, and waits for him at home no matter how late he returns. But we had an agreement, for years ago. I brought my resume to him. I told him I could create value for him, but I need his wife's identity to be separated from the Ernest family. He agreed. We are husband and wife, but more importantly, partners. We will get divorced sooner or later. If you have a need, we can do it now. Felix looks at me. "Did you ever like me?" "I don't know. I don't know what liking someone means. I like his appearance. I like his figure. I like sleeping with him. I like the work environment he provides for me. But I don't want to stay with him forever. It's too time-consuming." Felix seemed to understand what I meant. He nodded, pressed his sore eyelids, and said softly, "That's fine. I don't like you that much anyway." The car window slowly rolled up. Felix drove away. At 19 weeks pregnant, The baby is doing well and is now about the size of an apple. Rachel came back from abroad, saying she wanted to stay with me for a while, but every day, all she does is sleep and eat. And she insists on having me hold an apple next to my belly to take photos for her. I once passed by a winery and saw a bottle of 2008 vintage red wine. 2008, I was 8 years old. If I had stored a bottle of wine back then, it would have aged into a fine vintage by now, but I didn't save it, so now I don't have it. The past can't be returned to. If you don't do it now, you won't be able to do it in the future, she said while editing the photos. I looked at her suspiciously. How long has it been since your last health checkup? What do you mean? Do you have a terminal illness? Are you cursing me? Okay, great, I overthought it. Later I saw Polly again. The reason was that Rachel went city walking in the middle of the night, ran into a super cool and beautiful female DJ, took a picture, and shared it with me. I took a look, and it was Polly. Later, Rachel went over to join the fun again and got drunk. I went over with a cold expression to pick her up, only to find that the person accompanying her was Polly. No wonder the voice on the phone just now felt strangely familiar. Long time no see. Polly nodded. Watch yourself. A girl getting drunk in a place like this, there are plenty of people looking to take advantage. Thank you. See you. Hey, Polly. I called out to her and pointed at Rachel. Can you give me a hand? I can't hold her up. Polly frowned, looking at Rachel and then at me, her gaze shifting to my stomach. The next second she walked over and scooped up Rachel with one hand. Where's the car? Rachel was a handful. Not only did she throw up in the car, but she also vomited all over Polly. At that moment, Polly probably felt like strangling her. When we got home, she didn't even wait for me to invite her in. She rushed straight inside and took a half-hour shower. By the time she came out, I had already opened the wine to let it breathe. Care for a drink? This is for you. I'll have the milk. Polly wasn't one to be shy. She sat cross-legged on the carpet. She drank half the wine I had decanted. Getting slightly tipsy, she blurted out, "Your whole family is crazy." I have never denied this. Polly let out a light laugh and murmured, "But who isn't? How many normal people are there in this world? You're drunk." She shook her head. "I've been drunk for many years, but now I'm sober." She asked me, "Why do you want a divorce?" I thought about it. "Because I don't need marriage." "Then why did you get married?" "Because I needed marriage." Polly frowned with an expression that said, "Are you kidding me?" I smiled. "Once, I needed marriage as a medium, but I won't stay in it forever. So, for me, marriage is just a strategic condition, not a necessity." Polly suddenly fell silent. She poured herself another drink and downed it. "I should have known I wasn't pregnant, but you didn't know. I almost went to bed with Felix. We hugged, kissed, tore off each other's clothes, and at the last moment, he regretted it. That's when he told me he was married." Polly, after hearing this, she was so furious that she was about to leave, but Felix stopped. "I'll give you 100,000 to put on a show with me. Are you in?" Polly leaned back slightly, looking out the window. I asked him why, and he told me he wanted a divorce, but he wanted to know if his wife wanted one too. Polly snorted. "Don't you think he's crazy? Actually, I don't even know why I'm telling you this. Maybe it's because I really admire your choices. Please keep going." That night Polly slept in the guest room. When I woke up, the guest room had been tidied up spotlessly, including the trash from last night, all of which she had taken away. She must have her own story too. Later, when my child was already running around everywhere, Polly came to my house more and more frequently, and we became friends who could talk about anything. It was only then that she told me. When Felix suggested she fake a pregnancy, she almost flew into a rage and wanted to punch Felix. She probably won't be able to get pregnant in her lifetime. She had been tormented by a scumbag for 3 years. The man was idle and relied on Polly to support him, yet he looked down on Polly for going to nightclubs. Once, after they had been arguing for half a month, Polly discovered she was pregnant. The man sneered, "How can you prove it's mine?" Back then, I was too young, reckless and unrestrained. To what extent? Polly slit her wrist in front of the man to prove her innocence. She also aborted the child to make the man regret it, but in reality, none of this had any effect on that man. Not long after, Polly became pregnant again. She said to the man, "Let's get married." The man replied impatiently, "Married? With what? We can't afford to raise another child. What's the point of keeping it? Get an abortion." Polly had her second miscarriage. She lay on the cold bed, without even a warm meal, while the man took the last of their money and went out to enjoy himself. Later came the third time. Polly was determined to keep the child. But the man pushed her, and the baby was lost. Even at this point, Polly did not leave the man. It was the man who abandoned her. Why? At 18, I went out to work and got scammed by a pyramid scheme. I disappeared for a year, and my parents never noticed. He was the one who rescued me. Besides him, I had nothing left. I thought I couldn't survive without him. But in reality, I just stumbled a couple of steps and quickly found my footing. Polly has changed a lot. She often smiles now. No longer so gloomy and devoid of hope. She also learned to weave bracelets, stringing a small golden horse on it, and gave it to Leah, wishing her peace, joy, and happiness, year after year. The day I gave birth was the 15th, a full moon. From the onset of labor to the smooth delivery of the child, it took only a few short hours. At 7:40, with the moon hanging high, Leah let out her first cry. Leah was the nickname given by Rachel, who said Leah and Rachel were a perfect match. She held the child clumsily, her eyes never leaving her. "Our Leah is so beautiful. Was I this pretty when I was born?" "What kind of question is that? I'm only 3 years older than you," Rachel pouted. "Even if I were 30 years older, you wouldn't have given me a second glance. You really disliked me back then." She said it offhandedly, but after she spoke, we all fell silent. When I was a child, my feelings toward Rachel couldn't be entirely summed up as dislike. I did dislike her at one point. I was also afraid and terrified of her, but every time she tried to get close to me and showed me kindness in her clumsy way, I couldn't help but soften toward her. Looking back now, throughout Ella's life of mistreating me, the only good thing she probably ever did was leaving Rachel to me. I know that Rachel has visited her. She asked me how much I give to Ella each month. I said 800. Rachel widened her eyes. She probably couldn't accept it. Nor did she know how Ella could survive with 800. But Andrew understood. He said I was very mean, insulting Ella with 800. However, she raised you, ensuring you live, and you support her, ensuring she doesn't die. Quite fair. As for Rachel, whether she helps Ella or ignores Ella, that's her issue to deal with. She also needs to resolve the impact Ella has had on her over all these years. She asked me what kind of person I hope Leah will grow up to be. I thought for a moment. Healthy and smooth sailing, that's it. No expectations for her to top the exam rankings or achieve great success. Holding Leah, I gently stroked her soft little face. If she has the ability, she can shine brilliantly. If not, it's also fine to be a little nobody, happy and carefree. These words, Pamela said very calmly. Rachel stood frozen in place. For no reason, her nose tingled. For no reason, the corners of her mouth drooped. And for no reason, tears threatened to fall. She hurriedly turned her back. Her name is Rachel, the cherished treasure of her family. She has an older sister named Pamela, a piece of jade that should have shone brilliantly, yet for some reason became tarnished. Someone once asked Ella, "Clearly, Pamela is more outstanding, so why do you favor Rachel more?" At that time Rachel was 8 years old, Pamela was 11. Ella could still occasionally realize her own excessiveness, but she couldn't control it. "I can't help it. Probably we're just not naturally compatible. I get annoyed just seeing her. And she really isn't close to me either. Can't be tamed, so it's not my fault." Not like Rachel, who's clingy, sweet-talking, and obedient. Although a bit silly, she's so endearing. 8-year-old Rachel didn't understand the meaning of the words. She only thought she was being endearing. Later, as she grew up, she heard an analysis. Some adults wish for their children to be as smart as humans and as obedient as dogs. At that moment, Rachel burst into tears. Yes, a dog, from childhood to adulthood. How much she resembled a pampered pet dog wagging its tail and begging for affection. Rachel really liked Pamela, but she knew Pamela didn't like her. Pamela not liking her was perfectly normal. She remembered when they went to the countryside to play as children. The clumsy Rachel walked along the ridge but accidentally fell into the field, covered in mud. She was terrified, afraid of her parents' cold faces and disdain. But what she feared even more was that Pamela would be beaten for following her. In the empty room, with the door wide open, Pamela knelt there. Before her was a faint glimmer of light. Behind her was darkness that seemed ready to devour her. This is Rachel's entire memory of that day. Later, Pamela was beaten, or how long she knelt, where she was, or what she was doing. Rachel had no impression. As if she had amnesia. She liked Pamela. Pamela was smart, had good grades, was good at drawing, could dance, and could play the piano. It was something she took great pride in, saying that Pamela was her sister, but she never dared to let Ella know any of this. When Ella punished Pamela by making her go hungry, she would secretly slip snacks into her room, and when Ella forgot to give Pamela living expenses, she would take more than half of her own money and stuff it into Pamela's backpack. Pamela likes to play chess, with a chess manual tucked in her book, which she often reads. Rachel is extremely happy, and she is determined to have Pamela learn to play chess. Rachel is very clumsy and also timid. Because she didn't help Rachel with her homework, Ella tore up Pamela's test paper. Rachel couldn't say a single good word for Pamela. She could only sob as she pasted the test paper back together. She only hoped that Pamela could dislike her a little less. Just a little less would be enough. They stumbled and staggered their way through growing up. Pamela wants to study medicine. Rachel held Ella's arm. "Mom, wouldn't it be great if we had a doctor in our family?" Pamela wants to leave the Ernest family. Rachel thought her fiancé was quite good, with such a good family background, if she ran away. Pamela could definitely take her place. After 4 years of wandering, Rachel had been to many places. When she saw the broader world, she realized that what had once trapped her was nothing more than that. So when Pamela wanted a divorce, she returned so decisively and lightly. She didn't particularly hate Ella and Jason, at least not like Pamela and Andrew. At least she had already gotten the most among these children. She will still take care of Ella, and will also take care of Pamela and Leah. She wants to give all her love to Leah, let that little girl grow into a true bright moon. The end. Story 2. I had been secretly married to Justin for 3 years. When I was 8 months pregnant, he said he would give me a wedding that I would never forget for the rest of my life. Holding my belly, I stood on the stage full of anticipation. However, it was his assistant who walked towards me. She flung the bright red marriage certificate on my face in public. "Natalie, you shameless mistress. Do you think you can take the proper place just because you're pregnant with an illegitimate child? Dream on. Aren't your parents known as the gods of marriage protection? How could they raise a daughter like you, such a despicable mistress?" Justin stood behind her, and his cold eyes made me feel as if I had fallen into hell. Later, I finally understood. He chose to get the marriage certificate with his assistant the day before our wedding to avenge his deceased childhood sweetheart and her mother. That night, my mother couldn't bear the online violence and died suddenly of a heart attack. My father accidentally fell off the building and became a vegetable. He personally reported that all my theses were plagiarized, which led to the cancellation of my postgraduate student status and my university degree. I, as expected, became a mistress despised by everyone, and my prematurely born child was also regarded as an illegitimate one. The next time I saw Justin was 5 years later. He said he wanted to give my child and me a home. Natalie, the voice that had dragged me back into nightmares in countless late nights made my whole body stiffen. I turned my head and met Justin's shocked gaze. He was dressed in a suit, and his appearance perfectly overlapped with the cold groom in my memory. In these 5 years, I had imagined countless scenarios of our reunion, but I never thought it would be in such a place and in such a situation. I thought that when we met again, I would be so angry that I would go crazy, but I felt nothing inside. "Excuse me," I tried to sidestep past him, but he reached out his hand to block me. The sounds of laughter and joking in the private room of the club broke the silence between us. I couldn't win Martina back then. So what? No matter how noble and pure she was, like a saint, the precious daughter she raised with great care would only kneel on the ground like a dog, begging for my favor. "You're really something, Kevin. I heard that Martina was literally driven to death by her despicable daughter. If it weren't for you taking care of her, who knows where she would be soliciting customers on the streets now." Martina was my mother. The one speaking proudly was my benefactor Kevin, who was once a passionate pursuer of my mother. The most boastful thing in his life was that the daughter of his former goddess had degenerated into his mistress. I pretended not to notice the pride in Kevin's tone and put my hand on the doorknob, preparing to go in. However, Justin suddenly pulled me behind him and violently opened the door. "Who are you talking about with so much fun?" The others didn't see me behind him. They paused in their joking for a moment and then resumed the lively atmosphere. Kevin staggered to his feet, with a teasing look on his face. "Is Mr. Justin also interested in my mistress? Then later we'll let everyone have a good look. She's really cheap. It only costs 150,000 yuan a year, and you can have her at your disposal 365 days a year. I can also guarantee that she'll offer different styles every day. You can even say she has the body of a succubus." Laughter broke out, and everyone praised Kevin for being vigorous even at his age and for being good at training women. Seeing that the topic was about to turn vulgar, I broke free from Justin's hold, smiled, walked from behind him to Kevin's side, and skillfully supported him to keep him steady. "Didn't the doctor tell you to drink less?" The private room suddenly fell silent. More than a dozen pairs of eyes were fixed on me like searchlights, and among them, Justin's gaze was the most intense. Kevin sobered up a bit and also realized that I had heard what he said just now, but he didn't feel the least bit guilty. Instead, he even pinched my chest a few times in public. "How dare you lecture me when you're late?" He turned to the others and announced triumphantly, "This is the precious daughter of Martina that I told you about. I spent 3 years trying to win her mother's heart but failed, but it only took me 3 seconds to win her over." Kevin's hand slid to my back. A wave of nausea welled up in my stomach. I maintained a smile and let him show off his trophy in front of everyone. These humiliations were nothing compared to my father's medical expenses and my son's surgical fees. I gently wiped the wine stains from the corner of his mouth with my sleeve and chuckled. "The doctor said you should quit drinking. Just think of it as doing it for me." The tender light in my eyes made him give up the idea of humiliating me in public. He poured 3 glasses of wine for me on his own. You were supposed to arrive in 15 minutes, why were you late? Hurry up and apologize to all the bosses, or your leave for tonight will be invalid. If I hadn't met Justin at the door, I wouldn't have been late. From putting my son to sleep to rushing here while enduring a high fever, I had calculated the time precisely. Although Kevin was nearly 50 years old, he couldn't fall asleep without some entertainment unless I was sick. But today, when I asked for leave, he set a condition: if I didn't please him, I definitely wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. I ignored Justin's unfathomable gaze, picked up the 3 glasses of white wine in front of me, and drank them in one gulp. After drinking the 3 glasses of strong liquor, my stomach churned. My body, which was already suffering from a high fever, couldn't bear it at all. My throat burned with pain, and my vision went dark for a moment. Sorry, I need to go to the restroom. I turned around and stumbled into the restroom, vomiting violently. The alcohol mixed with stomach acid burned my throat, and tears welled up uncontrollably. I gripped the edge of the sink tightly and looked at myself in the mirror. My face was deathly pale, but my lips were an abnormal red due to the high fever. The stray hairs on my forehead were soaked in cold sweat and stuck to my cheeks. I looked so ugly. I scooped up some cold water and slapped it hard on my face. Trying to sober myself up a bit. Your mother hated mistresses the most in her life. Does she know that you're now so despicably acting as a mistress for someone? A cold voice came from behind me. I met Justin's sarcastic gaze in the mirror. He leaned against the door frame, dressed in a suit, with an indifferent expression, as if he was just watching a joke. I twitched the corners of my mouth, didn't answer, and continued to lower my head to rinse my mouth, seeing that I didn't say anything. He sneered and walked closer. What's wrong? Are you mute? Isn't this exactly what you wanted? I answered whatever he wanted to hear. Now I had long lost my former pride. Justin's eyes suddenly darkened, and there was even a hint of astonishment in them, meeting those cold eyes. The nightmarish wedding 5 years ago resurfaced again. His assistant Lisa flung the marriage certificate on my face, calling me a mistress. The guests pointed and whispered. My mother collapsed on the spot. And my father slapped me in the face, and Justin stood in the middle of the crowd, watching all this indifferently. He hated me, because he firmly believed that it was my mother who forced his childhood sweetheart and her mother to death. But it was Iris's mother who had meddled in someone else's marriage, served as a mistress, and embezzled the property of the original wife. My mother, as a lawyer, helped the original wife win the lawsuit and get back what belonged to her. It was also Iris's mother who, unwilling to accept the result, took Iris and threatened to jump off the building to force the scumbag husband to change his mind. In the end, she slipped and fell off the building, and both mother and daughter died. Justin didn't believe it and couldn't accept this fact. He stubbornly thought that it was my mother who had forced them to death. So, he deliberately got close to me, deceived me into a secret marriage, and then humiliated me in public at the wedding, ruining my whole family. Natalie, how on earth did your mother educate you? Kevin is old enough to be your father. How could you be so despicable as to be his mistress? He stared at me, his eyes full of mockery. My mother's death was a hurdle that I could never get over in my heart. It felt as if my heart was being squeezed tightly. I bit my lip hard to prevent the tears from falling. My mother, who had been proud all her life and hated mistresses the most, was still being scolded for not educating her daughter well and for raising a despicable daughter. I took a deep breath, suppressed the choking feeling in my throat, and chuckled. Yes, I'm just despicable. Otherwise, how could I have believed your nonsense and been your mistress for 3 years? Justin's face darkened, and just as he was about to speak, my legs suddenly went weak, and I almost fell. He instinctively reached out to support me, when his palm touched my burning skin. His face changed abruptly. You have a fever. I pushed him away and managed to stand firm. It's none of your business. He grabbed me and wanted to take me to the hospital. I struggled fiercely, but I couldn't shake off his hand that was as strong as a vice. Let go. Kevin is still waiting for me. I don't have time to play with you. There was a surge of anger in Justin's eyes. Before he could flare up, the door of the restroom was suddenly pushed open. Yo, is Mr. Justin interested in my mistress? Kevin leaned against the door frame, drunk. His eyes scanned back and forth between me and Justin, and he smiled meaningfully. Justin gave him a cold glance but didn't let go. She has a fever. Kevin sneered. Since when do you have the right to worry about my woman? He walked over and dragged me into his arms to claim his sovereignty. Come on, let's go back and keep drinking. I endured the discomfort and obediently followed him, but Justin suddenly said, Kevin, is this what you call love? Humiliating the daughter of your former sweetheart? My head was dizzy, and I didn't understand what Justin meant for a moment. He had forced my mother to death and ruined my family. Now he was showing sympathy for me. Kevin squinted his eyes, his tone unfriendly. Mr. Justin, what you said is a bit out of line, isn't it? Justin ignored him and directly reached out to pull me into his arms. She has such a high fever, and you still want her to drink, Kevin. It's okay to have fun, but it won't be nice if someone dies. Kevin's face changed. He obviously also realized that I wasn't in a good state, but he quickly sneered again. What, is Mr. Justin feeling sorry for her? You weren't like this when you trampled her in the mud back then. Justin didn't answer and directly dragged me outside. I struggled, and he picked me up horizontally. Kevin cursed behind us, but Justin didn't look back at all. My whole body was burning hot. And I didn't even have the strength to struggle. I could only let him stuff me into the car, taking advantage of his inattention. Kevin also got into the car and sat in the passenger seat, his tone cold. Mr. Justin, where are you taking my woman? Justin ignored his deliberately emphasized tone and said indifferently, if she burns her brain out, it won't be fun for you to play with her. Kevin snorted and didn't say anything more. The car drove through the night. And there was a dead silence inside, until Justin asked me, where is the child buried? I want to go and see him. My heart suddenly tightened, and my nails dug deep into my palm. He thought Neil was dead. 5 years ago, after the farce at the wedding, I gave birth prematurely to a baby boy. But Justin didn't even bother to take a look at him. Later, he destroyed everything I had, and I left with Neil, who had congenital heart disease. Everyone thought the child didn't survive. I also didn't want Justin to know that Neil was still alive. No need, he doesn't deserve to have a father like you. To be exact, someone like Justin didn't deserve to be my child's father. If it weren't for the premature birth, Neil's heart disease wouldn't be so serious. Justin slammed on the brakes. His hand gripping the steering wheel suddenly tightened, and his knuckles turned white. Kevin almost hit his head. He sneered with a cold face. Mr. Justin, the person is already dead. Why pretend to show father-son affection? Justin ignored him, got out of the car, dragged Kevin out with brute force, and threw him on the ground. Then he drove away. There were only Justin and me left in the car. The shadows of the trees beside the road flashed by rapidly. The air was so stagnant that it was suffocating. Fortunately, we soon arrived at the hospital. After seeing the doctor, I didn't wait for him to get the medicine. I walked out of the hospital and hailed a taxi. As soon as the ride-hailing car arrived, he roughly closed the car door and drove the driver away. Are you really in such a hurry to go back and serve him? Natalie, how despicable are you going to be? I didn't know how much more despicable I could be either. I only knew that on the day of the wedding, my life had fallen into eternal darkness. A mistress who was like a rat crossing the street, loathed by everyone, without a diploma and unable to find a job that could support my family. The savings my parents had accumulated were all squandered in just 1 year. I sold everything I could, but it still wasn't enough to pay for the high medical expenses. I once thought about dying together with my father and son, but at the last moment. When Kevin found out that I wanted to commit suicide, he offered to support me as his mistress. He said that as long as you're alive, there's hope. In fact, I had no hope left, but the child who was connected to me by blood shouldn't be given up. My father, who was implicated by me, also shouldn't be deprived of the right to live. For their medical expenses, I only hesitated for 3 seconds before agreeing to be Kevin's mistress. I looked up at Justin and twitched the corners of my mouth. Didn't Mr. Justin already know? I've always been this despicable. I was infatuated with Justin before, but all I got in return was falling into the abyss. Later, being a mistress for someone else could save 3 lives, and I thought it was worth it, even though Kevin always had a mean mouth. He gave me more money than he promised. Just for this, I was grateful to him. As for what he wanted to get from me, I didn't care anymore. Those days and nights of self-torture. I stubbornly believed that it was a form of atonement. Even Kevin laughed at me, saying that my mother would be so angry that she would come back to life. I even fantasized that if I were more despicable, maybe my mother would really come back to life. Then my father would definitely wake up instead of lying in bed as a living dead person. After the wedding, a series of revenge measures came one after another, leaving our family overwhelmed. If my mother hadn't had a sudden heart attack, she would definitely have been able to prove my innocence. Unfortunately, there are no ifs in life. Justin looked at me, calm and composed, with emotions surging in his eyes. Finally, he sneered and let go of his hand. Get lost. I turned around and got into the taxi to go home. I rushed into the room and saw Neil with a flushed face, breathing rapidly. His little body was frighteningly hot. Mom, I feel so bad. I picked up Neil with trembling hands, soothed him, and dialed 120 in a panic. The ambulance roared out of the community, and I didn't notice at all that in the black car parked on the side of the road, Justin was staring fixedly in the direction of the ambulance, his eyes dark and unreadable. Fortunately, after the rescue, Neil was out of danger, but it was only a temporary escape. His condition was extremely unstable, and the doctor said that he must have the surgery as soon as possible. facing the surgical fee of at least 500,000 yuan. My mouth was filled with bitterness as I dialed Kevin's number. Could you advance me 500,000 yuan? On the other end of the phone, Kevin sneered. What, asking for money again? The child is ill and needs surgery. Tonight, I want to try a new position. My nails dug deep into my palm as I calmly replied. Okay. After hanging up the phone, 300,000 yuan was quickly transferred to my bank card. According to the rules, I had to serve Kevin well to get the remaining 200,000 yuan. Just thinking about his special fetishes made my scalp tingle. I turned around to go back to the ward and bumped into a wall of flesh. Justin was standing behind me, looking at me with cold eyes. Natalie, you've become even more despicable than before. Why do you always try to tie a man down with a child? Once, I loved him. When he said he wanted a secret marriage, I agreed. I didn't even realize that the marriage certificate he gave me was fake. He said he would make our relationship public when I got pregnant, so I did my best to treat my polycystic ovary syndrome and prepare for pregnancy. I took so many bitter medicines, not because I wanted to tie him down with a child, but simply because I wanted to give birth to the crystallization of our love. But I never imagined that my 3 years of deep affection were just part of his revenge plan. I couldn't help but laugh with tears in my eyes and said as usual, "You're disappointed." This time, I successfully tied a man down with the child. Justin clenched his fists and slightly raised his eyebrows, which was a sign of his anger. But unexpectedly, he held back. "Leave Kevin and come with me." "But I won't raise a bastard, just leave that child to him." I don't believe he would ignore his own son's life or death. I looked up at him and suddenly couldn't laugh anymore. It turned out that even though he saw Neil with his own eyes, he still couldn't recognize that Neil was his child. "Justin, a good horse doesn't eat the grass it has already trampled. I won't be a mistress for the same person twice." His fists creaked as he tried his best to control his anger. "To save Kevin's child, you're willing to debase yourself." He's a well-known ruffian in the underworld. He treats women like pigs and dogs. It seemed that he genuinely wanted to poach me to be his mistress, but I still refused. He was angry that I didn't know what was good for me and left with a flick of his sleeve. I forced myself to tuck Neil in and then turned to go to Kevin's villa. At dawn, I left the villa with bruises all over my body. Finally, the remaining 200,000 yuan was transferred to my phone. When I got back to the hospital, I gently stroked Neil's pale face, and tears silently streamed down my face. "Mom, why are you crying?" Neil opened his eyes drowsily and reached out his hand to touch my tear-stained face. I quickly wiped away my tears. "It's okay, Mom is just too happy. The doctor said that baby will be able to have the surgery soon." Neil smiled weakly, his eyes full of stars. "Then after the surgery, will I be able to run like other children?" I choked up and nodded. "When Neil gets better, Mom will take you to the amusement park." Neil fell asleep contentedly. I leaned wearily against the bench in the corridor to rest. Soon, I heard a commotion. "That's her, that shameless mistress." The word mistress jolted me awake instantly. I saw a noblewoman rushing over with several burly men. She slapped me hard in the face. "You bitch. How dare you seduce my younger brother and make him stay single?" I staggered a few steps from the blow. Before I could regain my balance, my hair was grabbed fiercely. "Strip her naked. Let everyone see what this slut looks like." There were screams, insults, and tearing. Neil cried and tried to rush over to help me, but he was controlled and insulted. The moment my clothes were torn to shreds, I closed my eyes in despair. Everything seemed to go back to 5 years ago. In the hospital corridor, everyone was holding up their phones to take pictures, pointing and whispering, but no one stepped forward to help. I begged them to let Neil go. At least not to let him see his mother being humiliated, but no one paid any attention. "Serves you right. This is what you deserve for being a mistress." She looked so innocent, but I didn't expect her to be so despicable. When my clothes were stripped off, the bruises and ambiguous marks on my body were exposed. Kevin, just like Justin used to be, watched his sister coldly and humiliated me to the fullest. I don't know when the insults and beatings ended. I curled up on the ground, shivering all over, and kept whispering sorry. Neil had fainted and was sent to the emergency room again. For the first time, I didn't dare to go to the door of the emergency room. I was afraid of hearing the news that I couldn't accept. Suddenly, a suit jacket was draped over me. I looked up and met Justin's complex gaze. "Did you see that? This is the end result of being a mistress. If you come with me, at least you won't be stripped naked." With just one look, I knew that he was the one who tipped off Kevin's sister. I didn't know how he could say such a thing. Ever since he let his assistant identify me as a mistress at the wedding, I had always been in a state of being exposed. That suit jacket covering me was like the emperor's new clothes. I suddenly burst out laughing. "No matter how miserable it is, it's better than being your mistress. At least he's single." Justin didn't get the begging and submission he expected from me. His eyes were extremely sinister. "Natalie, you're so ungrateful. You'll regret it sooner or later." He was right. I had already regretted it, regretted meeting him and falling in love with him. 3 days later, Neil successfully matched with a heart. The surgical fee was also collected. For the first time in 5 years, I let out a sigh of relief. But suddenly, I received a call from the doctor. "Miss Natalie, your father shows signs of waking up." I rushed into the ward ecstatically, only to see Justin standing in front of the hospital bed, and my father stared wide-eyed at the screen of Justin's phone, on which was playing the video of me being humiliated in public. "Dad, listen to my explanation." I rushed up tremblingly and smashed Justin's phone. My father struggled to raise his hand, pointed at me, and his lips trembled. "Evil daughter." The next second, the monitor let out a piercing alarm sound. "The patient's heart has stopped. Start the rescue immediately." I collapsed to the ground and watched helplessly as the doctors were busy. In the end, I only heard, "We've done our best. Please accept our condolences." Fate seemed to be a cycle, very much like what happened 5 years ago. As long as Justin stood there, even without saying a word, he could make me fall from the clouds into the abyss. The hatred that had been buried deep in my bones rushed out. I suddenly turned around, grabbed Justin's collar tightly, and roared at him. "Why did you show him that video?" Justin's face turned pale. "I just wanted to make him sober up and give you a surprise." "A surprise? Another surprise? Wasn't it a big enough surprise when he killed my mother 5 years ago?" I laughed maniacally, and tears couldn't stop flowing. "Justin, I admit that you made me fall into the quagmire, but why did you kill my mother? Why couldn't you even spare my father? What on earth did I do wrong?" He hugged me tightly, his body shaking violently. "Natalie, I'm sorry, I didn't know it would be like this. I just found out that Neil is my child, and I want to atone for my sins. I want to give you and the child a complete home." Justin's words were like a thunderbolt striking me. I pushed him hard, but I couldn't break free. Instead, he hugged me even tighter. "Natalie, give me a chance to make up for you and the child." "Make up? Do you deserve it?" Justin's face turned pale from my question. "Neil is my son, and I have the right to take care of him." Feeling disgusted, I pushed him away with all my strength. "You didn't even want to take a look at him 5 years ago. What are you pretending for now?" Showing father-son affection, Justin's eyes darkened. He took out a document from his suit pocket with a defeated look. The matched heart. I found it. I had a premonition of what he would say next. I stared at the heart-matching report, my fingertips trembling. Sure enough, he leaned closer, his voice gentle but cruel. "Natalie, you don't want to watch Neil die, do you? Leave Kevin and marry me, otherwise, this heart will disappear immediately." I closed my eyes, and tears silently fell. Finally, I nodded. "Okay." He smiled in satisfaction and reached out to hug me, but I dodged. "Before the wedding, I want to see the heart transplantation surgery completed." Justin couldn't wait to arrange Neil's surgery and the wedding. I went to handle my father's funeral affairs alone, just as I walked out of the hospital. Kevin rushed out from nowhere and pulled me into his car. "Natalie, you have a lot of nerve to flirt with Justin behind my back." I told him calmly. "Kevin, the deal between us is over." He sneered. "Over? You just took 500,000 yuan from me, and you want to end it. Don't forget. Those photos and videos of you that can't be seen in the light are all in my hands. What do you think your son will think if he sees his mother being as despicable as a dog?" I felt cold all over, as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. "What do you want?" Kevin gently stroked my face and said slowly, "Tonight, the old rules." Otherwise, I didn't know how I got to the crematorium, nor how I held the urn and buried my father. I was like a walking corpse, doing what I should do and trying my best to atone for my sins. When I got back to the ward, Justin looked at me with an unreadable expression. "Did Kevin find you? Didn't you promise me to break up with him? Or have you fallen in love with this man who is old enough to be your father in the past 5 years?" I was so cold that I couldn't say a word. Justin squeezed my chin hard, forcing me to look up at him. "Natalie, don't challenge my patience. Give me some time to deal with it." In the dead of night, I stood in front of Kevin's villa, shivering all over. As soon as the door opened, he dragged me in and threw me onto the sofa. "Got some nerve, making me wait so long." I suppressed my fear and nausea and tried my best to please him. "Kevin, the deal between us is over. I'll pay you back the money slowly." "Payback? What can you use to pay me back?" Kevin leaned forward and choked my neck with his fingers. "Natalie, do you think Justin can really protect you?" I had difficulty breathing, and my vision went dark. Suddenly, the door was kicked open, and Justin rushed in with some people. Kevin saw who it was and said casually, "Mr. Justin, it's not appropriate to break into someone's house, is it? Let her go." Kevin slowly pulled up his pants and shrugged. "What? Mr. Justin also likes to pick up cast-offs." The next second, Justin punched him in the face. Kevin staggered back, blood oozing from the corner of his mouth, but he laughed even more wildly. "Justin, do you think you can steal my woman by tipping off my sister?" But he alone couldn't stop Justin from taking me away. He was so angry that he smashed the bottle of red wine on the table. "Natalie, even if you raise a dog for 5 years, you should have some feelings for it. Are you really that despicable? So despicable that when he beckons, you forget why you ended up like this?" How could I forget? I couldn't forget either. The nightmares that came back to me in my dreams at midnight would always remind me of those humiliations, but to me, they were like a wolf's den and a tiger's lair. There was no difference between them. Justin saw that I was shivering and could hardly stand, so he picked me up horizontally and comforted me in a low voice. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." I closed my eyes, and tears silently fell. Didn't all my nightmares come from him? In the blink of an eye, it was the day of the surgery. I stood outside the ward, my heart in a mess. Justin handed me a cup of hot coffee. "Don't worry, the chief surgeon is an expert I invited from abroad." I didn't take it. I just stared at the door of the operating room and said word by word, "If the surgery fails, I'll kill you." Neil was the only spiritual pillar that kept me alive. If something happened to him, Justin held my shoulders and forced me to look at him. "Natalie, what happened back then is in the past. Do you really hate me that much?" What a good phrase, in the past. He had avenged his childhood sweetheart and her mother, but I could never get out of the abyss and was destined to rot in the quagmire. "What do you think?" Justin seemed to have some self-awareness and didn't say anything more. He just stood beside me in silence. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from Kevin. "You can't get rid of me." Then, one by one, extremely shameful photos popped up. My fingers were shaking, and I almost dropped my phone. Justin noticed something was wrong and frowned, asking what was going on. I quickly locked the screen and pretended to be calm. He snatched the phone from me and unlocked it with the date of my mother's Memorial Day, which was also our former wedding day. The photos were all exposed. Kevin, even though he gritted his teeth still chattered with anger. "I'll deal with this. Just wait for Neil's surgery with peace of mind." 5 hours passed, and the operating room light was still on. I curled up on the bench and tried my best to hug myself tightly. Justin sat opposite me, and his gaze never left me. "Did you wait for me to turn back like this back then?" He suddenly spoke, and there was a look of affection in his eyes that I couldn't understand, but it only got a denial from me. For Neil's sake, I swallowed all the sarcastic words. How could I have waited for someone who had destroyed my whole family? The truth also proved that whenever he got close to me, I would be haunted by bad luck. Now, I just hoped that God would bless Neil to have a successful surgery, considering that I had already lost everything. When this wish came true, my legs went weak, and I almost knelt in front of the doctor, but Justin caught me. "The child is temporarily stable, but he needs to be observed for 48 hours. I thanked the doctor with red eyes. The doctor looked at Justin and seemed to want to say something to me but held back. "Miss Natalie." Regarding the follow-up treatment expenses, Justin interrupted him. "All will be in accordance with the highest standards." After the doctor left, I shook off his hand and said thank you indifferently. 3 days after the surgery, Neil finally got out of danger. I was dozing off by the bedside when I was woken up by a piercing ringtone. Kevin sent a video call. I hesitated for 2 seconds and then went to the corridor to answer it. On the screen, he waved a stack of documents. "Guess what this is?" Kevin had always been a madman. Every time we had sex, he would take videos of humiliating me, which he would watch for his own amusement in his spare time. I didn't dare to look back at those shameful memories. Shivering, I asked him, "What on earth do you want me to do so that you can let me go?" For 5 years, a full 5 years of teasing and humiliation, wasn't it enough to make up for the fact that my mother had rejected his love? He understood the pleading in my eyes and grinned maliciously. "Meet me at the usual place at 10 o'clock tonight. Otherwise, these wonderful contents will be put on the dark web. By the way, I'll also send them to your mother in the afterlife. At that time, your mother might really come back from the dead out of anger." The video ended abruptly. A cold voice came from behind me. "Are you going to meet him?" I turned around. Justin was standing there, and his eyes were terrifying. "Natalie, do you really love him? What's so wrong with me compared to him? Why couldn't you love someone else instead of this old madman Kevin?" He thought that I was still the same person who would let my beloved do whatever they wanted. He seemed to have forgotten that it was he who made me lose the courage and backbone to love. In these 5 years, I had just been barely surviving, overwhelmed by exhaustion. I murmured unconsciously, "He's going to burn all those evidences to my mother." Justin left in a hurry. That night, he handed me a hard drive. "Now, you can stay with me at ease." Inside the hard drive were exactly the materials with which Kevin had threatened me, but I was even more puzzled. Since Justin knew that I had been Kevin's mistress for 5 years, why was he still so determined to marry me? Did he want to use this hard drive to push me into the abyss again? My throat tightened. I wanted to get the hard drive back, but I didn't have the courage. Moreover, I didn't know if he had made another backup, just like Kevin, to manipulate me with it. The follow-up treatment cost for Neil was a huge expense. Justin's recent behavior, at least on the surface, showed that he cared about this son. I forced myself to stop being paranoid and stammered, "I will keep my promise and marry you." I didn't know what means Justin had used, but Kevin ended up in prison. He hired the best lawyer for me and took me to the court to watch Kevin being tried in person. In just half a month, Kevin had aged beyond recognition. The look in his eyes when he looked at me was full of mockery and sorrow. "Natalie, those who betray me will never end well, just like your mother." His curse was extremely vicious. Justin raised his hand to cover my ears. But he couldn't stop the insults from Kevin's sister from reaching my ears. After leaving the court, he protected me even more tightly, not allowing anyone to humiliate me. He announced loudly to everyone, "Anyone who dares to humiliate my wife again should think twice about their capabilities." Wife. I had loved him for 3 years and had been labeled as a mistress for 5 years because of him. The title that I had once dreamed of hearing was so unfamiliar that it scared me. I was really confused, so I finally asked him in the car, "Why did you marry me? What about you and Lisa? We got divorced a month after we got the marriage certificate. I married her just to." The car fell into silence. We both knew very well that he had married Lisa just to avenge Iris and her mother. I looked out of the window, my mind in a mess. It was not until the car stopped at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau that Justin spoke again. "Natalie, I went too far back then. I later found out the truth about Iris's fall from the building, but I didn't dare to come back to you. I hid from you for 5 years like a quail. You don't know how I got through those nights. Natalie, it really wasn't your mother's fault back then." The sunlight shone through the window onto his red-rimmed eyes. His voice was hoarse, and it took him a while to say, "I hated the wrong person and caused our tragedy. In these 5 years, I have always been regretting and blaming myself. Natalie, thank you for giving me a chance to make up for the past." He affectionately opened the car door for me, inviting me to get out and accompany him to complete the romance that we had failed to achieve before, but I felt nothing inside. I wanted to ask him if he knew how I had survived those nights. But in the end, I shut up and walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau with him. This time, the official seal was real, and the certificate was also real, only love was gone. Justin prepared for the wedding at an astonishing speed. He rented the entire Rose Manor, and 100,000 fresh roses were airlifted from France. He even personally reviewed the guest list. "Natalie, what style of wedding dress do you like?" He showed me the design drawings on a tablet, and his eyes were as eager as a teenager in his first love. I casually pointed to one. "This one." He frowned. "Didn't you like the mermaid-style dress the most before?" I was taken aback. So he still remembered, but the Natalie who could be happy for a whole day because of a mermaid-style dress had already died at the wedding 5 years ago. "I don't like it anymore." Justin's eyes dimmed, but he still smiled and nodded. "Okay, it's all up to you." The night before the wedding, he took Neil to try on a little suit. Dad, after getting along with each other day and night for a short time, Neil had already fallen in love with this man who doted on both him and me. Neil called him crisply, his little face full of excitement and anticipation. "Dad, can I be the flower boy tomorrow?" Justin's eyes instantly turned red, and he picked Neil up. "Of course, my baby." Looking at the scene of them hugging as father and son, my nose felt sour. If there hadn't been that farce 5 years ago, how happy we would be now. Late at night, I couldn't fall asleep. I got up and went to the children's room to check on Neil. When I opened the door, I found Justin kneeling beside Neil's bed, gently stroking the child's face. In the moonlight, I saw tears on his face. "I'm sorry," he murmured in a low voice. "Dad came back late. It's all Dad's fault for making you and Mom suffer so much." Neil woke up at some point, also with tears on his face. He hugged Justin tightly and called him Dad with a sob. At this moment, I almost softened my heart, but the next second, memories flooded back like a tide, the figure of my mother falling down. My father's disappointed eyes, the overwhelming abuse on the internet, the notices issued by the doctor from time to time. I gently closed the door and went back to my own room. On the wedding day, the manor was as beautiful as a fairy tale. I stood in front of the mirror wearing a gorgeous wedding dress, but I only felt strange. "Mom, you look so beautiful today." Neil ran in wearing a little suit, his face blushing. The smile on his face was no longer the timid one he had when facing Kevin. I squatted down to hug him, but I found that he was burning hot all over. "Neil, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" He frowned slightly, covered his chest, and shook his head. I knew that he must be feeling uncomfortable in his chest. I was so scared that I was shaking all over. Noticing that Neil and I didn't look right, Justin shouted in a panic, "Doctor, call the doctor now." Before the private doctor that Justin had arranged for Neil arrived, Neil suddenly started convulsing in my arms. and his little face quickly turned pale. The wedding scene was in chaos. Justin rushed in and picked Neil up. After giving emergency treatment, we drove at full speed to the hospital. Acute rejection reaction. Surgery is needed immediately. The doctor's voice seemed to come from far away. I gripped Justin's hand tightly and knelt down in front of the doctor helplessly. Save him. Please save him. The light in the operating room turned on and off when the doctor shook his head and walked out. My world collapsed. Justin supported me, and we both swayed unsteadily. It's impossible. I broke free from Justin's embrace and rushed into the operating room. Neil, who used to call me Mom softly, lay on the hospital bed with a pale face and could no longer open his eyes. I collapsed and threw myself on Neil, unable to make a sound. Baby, wake up, Mom is here. I held Neil for a long time, but I couldn't stop his little body from getting colder and colder. Justin hugged me and had already cried his eyes out. Natalie, don't be like this. I turned around and slapped him hard. Get out, it's all your fault. If you hadn't insisted on having this wedding, Neil wouldn't have. Before I could finish my sentence, my vision went dark, and I fainted. When I woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed. Are you awake? Justin pushed the door open and came in, holding a bowl of porridge in his hand. Eat something. I looked out of the window and found that it was already late at night. How long have I been unconscious? 3 days. He sat down by the bed and tried to feed me. Only then did I notice that his eyes were bloodshot, and there was a stubble of beard on his chin. What about Neil? He has already been taken care of. When you get better, we'll go and see him off together. Justin, let's get a divorce. It had been proven that whenever I got close to him, I would be unfortunate. No. It was the people I loved who would become unfortunate. This was God's punishment for my love for him. Justin's hand shook, and the porridge spilled on the quilt. No way. He put down the bowl, and his eyes suddenly turned sinister. You're not going anywhere. At that time, I didn't understand the sinister look in his eyes. Until I was discharged from the hospital, and after Neil's funeral, he imprisoned me in a villa in the countryside. The interior of the house was decorated just the way I liked it. There were wedding photos that we had taken 5 years ago hanging everywhere, as if the past 5 years had just been a nightmare that I had had, even though Justin had put away all of Neil's photos and there was no trace of Neil in the house. But the scars left by Kevin's abuse on my body clearly reminded me that the past 5 years had been an extremely real nightmare. Justin carefully tried to win my favor. Natalie, from now on, this will be our home. Let's start over. I looked at the electric fence set up in the yard of the villa and interrupted him with a sneer. What? Are you going to imprison me? I just don't want to lose you. He grabbed my shoulders and pleaded desperately. Natalie, Neil is gone. But we can still have another child. Please give me a chance to make up for it. So Neil didn't mean that much to him after all. He tried his best to cook for me every day, to make me happy, and he sent expensive gifts to the villa without hesitation. But I still didn't look at him or accept his kindness. Justin asked me with red eyes and extreme grievance. Natalie, what on earth do I have to do for you to forgive me? The dead are gone, and we who are alive still have to keep living. Why do you have to dwell on the past? What a good saying that we who are alive still have to keep living. But wasn't it he who had been the first to remember the past and seek revenge for his childhood sweetheart and her mother? He had avenged his hatred and felt relieved. Now he actually wanted me to let go of the past and renew our relationship. It was really ridiculous and ironic. Unless time goes back and my parents and child come back to life. His face turned pale instantly. In the following days, Justin was even nicer to me, but he also controlled me even more. He fired all the servants and took care of my daily life himself. He even taught himself psychology, trying to control me mentally, but he didn't know that those humiliations and sufferings had already been deeply ingrained in my bones and marrow, and it wasn't something that he could get rid of easily. Every night, he would carry me on his back and kneel in front of Neil's photo in the basement to repent. But all his actions only got my silence in return. He started to go crazy, ignoring my wishes. He forced me to please him. Natalie, you were able to please and be humiliated by Kevin in different ways for a whole year for 5 years. Why can't you show me a little mercy? I turned a deaf ear, like a dead person. So he became even more ruthless and watched me even more closely. I really had enough of this kind of life. Until one day, while he was away, I smashed the bathroom mirror and cut my throat with a piece of the broken mirror. Let me go. I looked at Justin, who rushed in and said coldly, otherwise, I'll die in front of you right now. His eyes changed from shock to anger, and finally to despair. Do you hate me that much? Yes, even though I love you. Your love makes me sick. Justin staggered back a step, as if all his strength had been drained away. I was taken to the hospital to have my wound bandaged. He took good care of me until I was discharged and then handed me a card. If you want to leave, you can go, but I won't divorce you. Even if you die, you can only be my wife. I didn't expect him to let me go so easily, so I looked at him warily. Don't worry, I won't stop you anymore. I didn't take his card and left the hospital directly for the airport. The driver suddenly asked me if I knew the car behind us. I looked back and saw Justin's car slowly following us. I asked the driver to speed up, and he also accelerated. When we arrived at the airport, it started to pour with rain. He rushed out of the car and used his suit to shield me from the rain, getting himself completely soaked. Natalie, I don't want you to leave. Justin, I'm begging you. Can you please never appear in front of me again? Okay. He stood quietly in the rain, watching me walk into the airport. When the plane took off, I let my tears flow freely, for my dead parents, for my prematurely deceased child, and for the self who had once deeply loved Justin. A month later, I received a call from an unknown number. I had also become a mistress despised by everyone as expected, and my prematurely born child was also regarded as an illegitimate one. It turned out that he had been suffering from a terminal illness for a long time. Before he came back to find me, the doctor said that he only had a 30% chance of being cured. He didn't want to die with any regrets. So he came back to confess to me. The lawyer said that after I left, Justin had given up treatment and was just waiting for death. The cancer spread very quickly, and he passed away in pain and left all his property to me. He also left me a thick handwritten confession letter. Justin had arranged everything for his funeral very properly. I just needed to go back and sign the papers to get his property. But I didn't take that confession letter. I burned it directly. I burned everything in the past to the ground along with it. The end.